Welcome to another deep dive. We're tackling a topic today that I know a lot of you are really interested in, owning property in Thailand as a foreigner. And wow, you sent in so much material, legal stuff, real estate listings, even some forum discussions. You're serious about getting this right.
It's smart to be thorough. There's a lot to unpack. It's not as straightforward as some might think.
Right, and I think a lot of people, when they picture Thailand, they immediately jump to those dreamy beachfront bungalows. But let's address the elephant in the room right away. Can foreigners actually own land there?
Ah, yes, the classic Thai dream, waking up to those turquoise waters. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. The Land Code Act, it pretty much restricts land ownership to Thai nationals.
Okay, so that beachfront property might be a little trickier than just buying it outright. Are there any exceptions to that rule at all?
You're right, there are exceptions. One interesting one is Section 96 buys of the Land Code Act. This one actually lets foreigners own up to one ray of land, which is a pretty good chunk, like a football field size.
So there is a way to own land. There's got to be a catch, though, right?
Oh, there's a catch, Artie, a pretty big one. You have to invest at least 40 million baht into the Thai economy.
40 million baht. That's quite the investment. So this isn't really for the average buyer, huh?
Exactly. It's aimed at attracting some serious investment that will benefit the Thai economy.
Hmm.
And it's not just any investment either. It has to be approved by the Board of Investment, the BOI, and fit in with their goals for economic growth. Plus, there's a location restriction. You can't just pick any plot of land. It has to be in specific areas.
That makes sense. They want to make sure it's a win-win situation for Thailand and the investor. So for those of us who don't have 40 million baht lying around, what other options are there? Can you own land indirectly, maybe through a Thai company or something?
That's a route some foreigners consider, setting up a Thai company to own the land. But there's another catch, of course. At least 51% of the company shares. Those have to be owned by Thai nationals.
So even going the company route, Thai citizens still need to have the majority stake. I've heard some people talk about using nominee shareholders to get around this. What's your take on that? Is it legal or is it a risky move?
Using nominee shareholders, basically having Thai citizens hold shares but not really controlling the company. Well, let's just say it's a very gray area legally. It might seem tempting, but it's incredibly risky. If it's discovered, you could be looking at serious legal problems and might even lose your investment.
So definitely a path to tread carefully and probably get some solid legal advice before even thinking about it. Okay, so owning land, even indirectly, it's pretty tricky for foreigners. Let's switch gears a bit and talk about condos. I understand that foreigners are allowed to own condo units in Thailand, right?
Yeah, that's right. The Condominium Act, it allows foreigners to buy and own condo units, and it's actually pretty common. But like most things in Thailand, there are some conditions.
There are always conditions. What kind of restrictions are we talking about with condos?
The big one is the foreign ownership quota. In any condo project, only 49% of the units can be owned by foreigners.
So picture this, a building with 100 units. Only 49 of those can be owned by non-Thai people. What happens if I find a building I love, but the foreign ownership quota is full?
That's where leasehold agreements come in. It's basically like a long-term rental agreement. Even though you don't own the condo outright, you have the right to use it for an extended period.
Leasehold, okay. So how long are we talking about for these leasehold agreements?
In Thailand, leaseholds usually have a max duration of 30 years. But here's the good part. You can often renew the lease, sometimes even stretching it out to 90 years.
90 years. So even though you don't own the condo, you could potentially live there for a good chunk of your life. That's a pretty good alternative if you can't buy a unit outright. But are there any downsides to going the leasehold route?
There are definitely some things to keep in mind. Lease renewals, they aren't automatic. You really have to make sure it's spelled out clearly in your initial contract.
Oh, that's a really important detail. Imagine finding that perfect condo overlooking the ocean and then your lease runs out and you can't renew.
Exactly. You don't want any surprises down the road, so scrutinizing that lease agreement, especially those renewal terms, is crucial. Speaking of great properties, one of the listings you sent over caught my eye, a beachfront property in Lamai going for 25 million baht.
Wait, 25 million baht for a leasehold? What makes this one so special?
Oh, this one's a beauty. It's got a main villa, 3 bedrooms, plus a separate guest house, a private pool, even an outdoor shower, perfect for the tropical climate. It might need some updating, but that location is prime, and it could be a fantastic investment.
Wow, beachfront in Lamai with all those amenities, it does sound pretty tempting. But before we get too carried away by the beach life, let's dive a little deeper into the world of leaseholds in Thailand. What are some of the potential traps people should watch out for?
Well, one thing to remember is that lease terms can really vary. Some leases might let you sublet the property or even sell the remaining lease period, but others might have restrictions.
So, if someone's considering a leasehold, they really need to understand all the details in that contract. It sounds like having a lawyer look over it would be a good idea. What if, hypothetically speaking, you inherit a property in Thailand? Are there special rules for foreigners when it comes to inheritance?
That's a great question. Inheritance laws in Thailand, especially for foreigners, can be a bit tricky. Let's say, for example, you inherit this beautiful villa in Phuket.
Inherit a villa in Phuket. Now, that's a dream scenario. What are the potential complications a foreigner might face in that situation?
Well, inheriting a villa in Phuket, it sounds amazing, right? But even if you're married to a Thai national, you can't just automatically own it and register the property in your name.
So you inherit this incredible property, but you can't actually own it. That seems a bit strange. What's the reasoning behind that?
It really comes down to the Thai government wanting to keep control over their land and prevent too much foreign ownership. They want to protect their national interests and make sure the land stays mainly in the hands of Thai citizens.
That makes sense from a national perspective, I guess. But it's still a tough spot for the person who inherits a property. What are they supposed to do with it if they can't own it?
Thai law, it has this thing called a one-year disposal requirement for foreigners inheriting land.
Right.
Basically, you have 1 year to sell the property.
1 year. That's a tight deadline, especially when you're dealing with the emotional side of inheriting something from someone you care about. Plus, it puts pressure on you to find a buyer quickly, which might not be easy depending on the market.
Yeah, you're right. It can be a really difficult situation, emotionally and financially. It really highlights why understanding these specific Thai property laws is so important before making any decisions.
It definitely shows how crucial planning is and how getting legal advice is probably a good idea to navigate all of this.
Huh?
Okay, let's shift gears a little. You sent over some information about potential changes to ownership laws. What's the latest on that?
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of talk about possibly changing the ownership laws, mostly to try and attract more foreign investment and boost the real estate sector.
That sounds promising. What kind of changes are they thinking about?
One of the big ones they're discussing is increasing that foreign ownership quota for condos. Right now, it's capped at 49%, but they're talking about pumping it up to 70 or even 80%.
Wow, that would be a huge change. How do you think that would affect the Thai property market?
It could be a real game changer. Suddenly, investing in Thai condos would be much more appealing for foreign buyers, which could lead to a big increase in demand, especially in popular tourist areas. And that could push property values up and encourage more construction and development.
So it could be a good thing for developers and for foreign investors. Are there any other changes in the works?
There's been some discussion about loosening restrictions on land ownership for foreigners, too, like maybe letting them own bigger plots, maybe up to 10 ray, if they make certain investments that meet specific criteria.
So the main idea of land being for Thai nationals would still be there, but they might make more exceptions for bigger investments that help Thailand's economy.
Exactly. They're trying to find that balance between protecting their own interests and making things more attractive for foreign investors. These discussions show that the government knows how important foreign investment is for their economic growth.
It's definitely a situation to keep an eye on. Things are evolving, but let's not forget the practical side of owning property, the money. What are the essential things people need to know about taxes and fees when buying property in Thailand?
Ah, yes, the taxes and fees, can't forget about those. When you transfer property ownership in Thailand, there's usually a 2% transfer fee. It's usually split between the buyer and seller, but how they split it can be different depending on their agreement.
Okay, 2% transfer fee. Got it. Anything else foreign buyers should be aware of?
There are a few more taxes that you might have to pay. There's the specific business tax, SBT, it's 3.3% right now. But that one's only charged in certain cases, like if you sell a property within 5 years of buying it. Then there's stamp duty. It's a flat 0.5% on property transactions. A lot of times, though, you don't have to pay stamp duty if you have to pay the SBP.
So it's either SBT or stamp duty, not both. Any other taxes we should know about?
One more, withholding tax. This one, they calculate it based on the assessed value of the property and the seller's tax situation. It's a progressive rate for individuals, meaning the higher the property value, the more tax you pay. But for corporations, it's a fixed 1%.
Keeping track of all these different rates and calculations sounds pretty complicated.
It can definitely be overwhelming. That's why talking to a tax advisor or a legal expert who specializes in Thai property law is always a smart move. They can help you figure out the taxes for your situation and make sure you're following all the rules.
Getting expert advice is definitely a good idea. We've talked about challenges and opportunities, money stuff, even those potential changes to the law. Let's bring the Board of Investment, the BOI, back into the conversation. They're pretty important for attracting foreign investment, right? Can you explain how they can help people interested in property?
The BOI, they offer incentives and privileges to companies that meet their investment criteria.
Mm.
Sometimes, if you get BOI approval, you can even get exemptions from some of those land ownership restrictions we talked about.
So, getting BOI approval could really open doors for foreign investors. What kind of investments are they looking for to give that approval?
The specific criteria depend on the industry and the project, but usually there are minimum capital requirements. They also want to see job creation, technology transfer, and contributions to regional development. And remember, any land you buy has to be used for those activities, not for just anything you want.
So, it's not enough just to have the money. You have to show how your investment will benefit Thailand's economy and help the country grow.
Exactly. The BOI wants projects that will have a positive, lasting impact on Thailand.
It makes sense. They want to make sure everyone benefits, the investor and Thailand. Let's look at a real life example to see how all this works in practice.
Yeah, good idea. Real examples always help make things clear.
Remember that beachfront property in Lamai we were talking about, the one listed for 25 million baht? Villa, guest house, private pool, the whole package.
Oh, yeah, that one sounds amazing. What about it?
Let's use it as a case study. First, this beachfront property, it's being offered as a leasehold.
Right. Even though it costs 25 million baht, you wouldn't actually own the land itself.
Exactly. You'd be leasing it for a set amount of time, and you'd need to make sure you can renew that lease. What are some things potential buyers should be really careful about with a leasehold like this?
Definitely the lease terms, especially anything about renewals.
Hmm.
You want to be absolutely sure that you can renew the lease and that the terms for renewal are spelled out clearly.
That makes sense. Imagine falling in love with this beachfront paradise and then finding out you can't renew your lease. That would be heartbreaking.
Exactly. And don't forget about those taxes we talked about. For a 25 million baht property, those fees and taxes can add up to a significant amount.
Right, the transfer fee, SPT, stamp duty, withholding tax. That's a lot to consider on top of the already high price.
It definitely is. And remember, those tax rates and rules can change, so talking to a tax expert or lawyer who knows Thai property law is always a good idea to make sure you have the latest information.
Solid advice. Now, let's say we have a foreign investor who has even more money to invest and is seriously thinking about owning land. What are their options?
Well, we know foreigners generally can't own land in Thailand outright, but there are a couple of ways to do it, like we've been talking about.
That Section 96 bis exception comes to mind, the one where you need to invest at least 40 million baht.
Right.
Could that work in this case?
Maybe, if they're willing to spend quite a bit more. With that option, they can own up to one ray of land.
But it's not just about having the money, right? They also need to meet those BOI requirements and make sure the land is in one of those designated areas.
Exactly. The BOI, they carefully look at these investments and make sure they match up with what Thailand wants for their economy.
What about owning land through a Thai company? Could our investor do that?
It's definitely something to think about. But remember, at least 51% of that company has to be owned by Thai nationals.
So they'd need to find Thai partners to work with. And like we said before, everything needs to be legal and transparent to avoid problems.
Absolutely. Everything from setting up the company to the partnership agreements has to be done by the book.
It seems like this path could be really rewarding, but it also takes more work, more research, and probably more legal help than just buying a condo or getting a lease.
You're right. This option is more for someone who's really committed to investing in Thailand for the long haul and is ready to handle the more complex parts of the process.
We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive into owning property in Thailand as a foreigner. Laws, challenges, opportunities, money matters. We even looked at a real property listing. What are your main takeaways from all this?
I think the biggest takeaway is that foreigners can own property in Thailand. It can be done. It's not easy, but with the right knowledge and preparation, you can do it. Don't get scared off by all the legal stuff. If you plan carefully, do your research, and get advice from experts in Thai property law, you can navigate the system and be successful.
So it's all about being informed and prepared, not letting the process intimidate you. What advice would you give someone who's just starting to think about owning property in Thailand?
I'd say start by figuring out exactly what you want and what you can afford. What kind of property are you looking for? Where in Thailand do you want to be? Once you have that figured out, you can start digging into the specific rules and requirements for that type of property in that location.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We're wrapping up our exploration of owning property in Thailand. We've gone through a lot of information, the laws, the options, the challenges. It's been quite a journey.
It has, from those beautiful beaches to lease agreements and inheritance, even those possible changes in the laws, we've covered it all.
We've really dug deep into this topic. Now, as we wrap up, I want to make sure you walk away with the key takeaways, the things that matter most if you're seriously thinking about owning property in Thailand. What are the absolute essentials to keep in mind?
The most important thing is don't get discouraged. Foreigners can own property in Thailand. It's definitely possible. It's not a walk in the park. But with the right knowledge and preparation, you can absolutely do it. The legal stuff can seem complicated, but if you plan carefully, do your research, and most importantly, get advice from experts who specialize in Thai property law, you can navigate the system and achieve your goals.
So it's about being prepared and informed, not letting the complexity scare you off. What would you say to someone who's just starting to explore the idea of owning property in Thailand? What's the first step?
I'd say get clear on what you want and what you can spend. What kind of property are you looking for? A condo, a villa? Where in Thailand do you see yourself? Once you have a vision, then you can dive into the specific rules and requirements for that type of property in that area.
That makes a lot of sense. Tailor your approach to your specific goals and dreams. Would you suggest talking to a lawyer early on? Someone who really knows Thai property law?
Absolutely, 100%. Having a good lawyer on your side from the beginning can save you a lot of headaches. They can walk you through the legal maze, make sure you're following all the rules, and help you avoid any traps. They can also help you with the tax stuff, review contracts, and make sure the whole buying process goes smoothly. It's always better to be safe than sorry.
Couldn't agree more. Getting expert advice is crucial when you're dealing with laws in another country, especially for a big investment like property. We talked about those potential changes to the ownership laws. Should those be a major factor in someone's decision making?
It's exciting to think about the possibilities those changes could bring, but it's really important to remember that they're still being discussed, they haven't happened yet. Don't make decisions based on what might happen. Focus on the current laws and make informed choices based on what's in place right now.
Stay informed about potential changes, but don't gamble on them. What's your final piece of wisdom for our listeners as they embark on this journey of exploring property ownership in Thailand?
Don't be afraid to dream big, but be realistic and do your homework. Thailand is a wonderful place, rich in culture, stunningly beautiful, and full of opportunities. Owning property there can be an incredible experience, a chance to live a different kind of life, maybe even make it your second home.
I love that. It's about embracing a new adventure, immersing yourself in the vibrant tapestry of Thailand. And as we said throughout this deep dive, knowledge is power. Stay informed, get expert advice, and approach this process with curiosity and a willingness to learn.
Perfectly said. Owning property in Thailand might have its challenges, but for those who are willing to put in the effort, it's definitely within reach.
Who knows, maybe someday we'll be sipping iced tea on your balcony overlooking those turquoise waters. We hope this deep dive has been helpful and informative. Don't forget to subscribe to the deep dive for more exciting explorations into topics that matter to you. Until next time, happy exploring.